Welcome to Stop Overthinking, the podcast for overthinkers, people pleasers, and perfectionists who want to feel calm and confident enough to handle whatever life sends your way. I'm your host, Kristen Odegaard, a women's life and mindset coach, lifelong educator, and recovering perfectionist. Welcome back to the Stop Overthinking podcast. This is episode 33, and I have another guest with us today. I am hosting Emily Branson, and Emily is a client that began working with me last summer, and she's going to talk to you about what coaching is like, her expectations going in, what she got out of it, and if coaching might be for you. So let's go ahead and get started. What made you decide to try life coaching?
Well, when I had met you the first time, I just thought this is somebody that I would like to get to know. I remember you like just a really fun, chatty girl in this group that we were doing, and mostly I was curious what it was, like what it could offer for me. So I had heard of friends that had life coaches before, but I didn't exactly know what to expect. So I think curiosity is the main reason why I wanted to give it a try.
Mm-hmm. What were you hoping for? Like when you finally made the commitment and said, hey, we're going to try this, what were you looking to accomplish?
Well, originally so I think that's what I was originally expecting was like, after I talk to this person, then maybe I'll have this roadmap for the steps that I need to follow to get me from A to B.
Mm-hmm. And going into the sessions, you said you had some friends who had tried life coaching, or from talking to me, what were you anticipating that was going to happen? So the outcome was you kind of wanted this roadmap. What were you thinking it was going to be like?
I honestly had no idea. I figured that it would be something like therapy that I had done in the past, but I think I expected it to be more of like actual coaching, like, okay, well, Emily, this is what you need to do. Like more of
And I help you kind of sort out those thoughts and feelings and then getting to those actions. But that is a common question. And
I think you're spot on. When I thought of the word coach, I kind of was thinking about it in more of the athletic sports. You show up and they just tell you, this is what we're doing today. And it wasn't really like that. I got guidance that I wanted, but it was a little bit more driven by what I wanted to talk about that day, if that makes sense.
right, right. That's perfect. So what kind of topics and problems did you bring to the sessions, for whatever you're willing to share?
Yeah. I feel like 99% of the time we just talked about the relationships that I had with the people that I'm around all of the time. We did talk a little bit about like my time management and my career, but which was the route that I originally thought we were going to go is talk about, but it ended up actually being a lot more of, hey, this scenario happened this week and it made me feel ick. And I want to talk about that a little bit more, or this person's been bothering me, or I'm feeling really judgy around this person, or just situations that were not making me feel good. And I feel like I just wanted to find out more of why am I feeling this way. And that is what you helped me do more so. And then one step farther than that would be like, how can I keep this from happening again? Because this wasn't really like a good situation or a good feeling or something along those lines.
Right. Yeah. So there were a
That's
lot
what
of
I feel like we talk about the most, at
right.
least.
And a lot of that, well, and that's a big part of your life, and often is for other people. But I think for you, those relationships are really important with your family, your extended family, your husband, and things that were happening in your life and going on at different times. And so I do remember too talking about even just kind of with your business and prioritizing things, making you feel like you had time.
Yeah, I was going to say specifically too, it was like, I think I knew that it was all interwoven. Spending time with people, relationships with people versus work, especially when you're an entrepreneur and your whole life is kind of a muddled mess of what should be what and what should be prioritized. I felt a lot calmer after touching on those topics with you, more confident.
Perfect. Was there one particular concept or skill that we talked about that has been the most helpful for you?
Very, very, very high on the things that I learn from you that I use all the time is just learning that different people think differently than me, which sounds like such a basic concept, but reminding myself that all the time has really brought so much more peace into my life because I'm not constantly always thinking, well, why are they doing that way? They should do it this way. And having that in the back of my mind going around and around and around in circles, wondering why people do things different than me, and more than that, thinking they should do it the way that I do it, and just learning to finally accept that people are different than me and that I think I always had the head knowledge that people have different experiences and different backgrounds, but finally just coming to terms and accepting that people are just different than me, and they have these, you always talk about like having a different owners or user manual, that just finally accepting it has changed most out of anything I've learned, but really quite drastically. I'm not even exaggerating. I think about it all the time and I just feel more peaceful now.
Mhm. Well, and I think that's one thing because and to recognize, is this really how, do I want to feel judgment? Do I want to feel frustrated or annoyed? And recognizing that we don't get to control the other person and have them change their behavior. So how am I going to choose my response? And again, yes, then that recognition, like, okay, I'm not always the reference point. They have different filters that is going to determine how they think about a topic. And you may not like it. I mean, so I think there's definitely that recognition, like, I don't have to like it, but I can let go of the judgment piece of it that I feel, because that's not usually helping anything. Yeah.
Mhm.
So the manual is one of my favorite topics, and I think the most life-changing for me too.
Yeah, I think along with that too, I don't think now like, oh, I wonder why they do it that way. But I wonder why they do that way, but with a different tone in mind. It's more out of curiosity versus judgment. And like I said, I had the head knowledge that people have different backgrounds, different experiences, and so they handle things differently. But it really did take meeting with you and practicing it to finally kind of set me free from that.
Right. Yes. And I agree. I think that some of the differences between having that head or intellectual knowledge and whether that's something even that you're consciously working on, and be able to take a look at specific thought patterns of, where exactly is this showing up in my life, and being able to pinpoint it, and then building to another situation and another person, and until you can actually recognize it yourself, for sure. Yeah. Did you notice changed? Would people have said like your tone of voice or your actions, anything like that you noticed after coaching sessions?
Well, pretty much I taught everyone that I could the concepts that I learned because I could see my friends and family being held to those same like judgy feelings, and I just knew, wow, there's actually a way to break free from this. So probably the way you can, that I showed it most outwardly, is by literally telling people, hey, did you know this? Like, have you ever thought this way? I don't know if people noticed my inward change, but I know that I left family functions, friend functions, and work functions way happier than I used to, because I was just able to let things just unfold as they did without always having to question things and judge things and side eye things and play scenarios in my head where things would go differently if they were like, what you always taught me was like, well, we kind of think if they would just do it my way, then I would be happier because they would do it my way, and so I don't know if it showed outwardly, but inwardly I felt so much better, or I
Right.
should say feel, and
Yeah.
still use it all the time.
Mhm. When you would talk about it with your friends and family, how did you bring it up? Was it just like, hey, I learned this really cool thing? Or was it? you need to learn this, or how did
Um,
that come about?
I think both with my very close friends and like my mom, I definitely inherit it from my mother because she has that pattern of now, why would they do that? And I think she would own up to it. But if I brought it up in a room, she'd say, yeah, well, why do they do it that way? So it came up because my friends and family were asking those questions and being judgy. I think we all are judgy to an extent. And so then I would just be like, well, because mom, I learned this concept called the owner's manual. And so I kind of just forced it, forced it upon people. But when you find something that works for you, you do want to tell your friends and family about it so they can give it a try.
You do. And of course, you then also have to recognize whether or not they use the concept is out of your hands, but you can offer it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all I can do is tell them how much it's helped me.
Mhm. When you were describing life coaching, because I'm assuming then you told people like, hey, I learned this concept or whatever. And so if you were describing life coaching to people who weren't familiar with it, what did that conversation sound like?
If someone was familiar with therapy, I know you're not considered a mental health therapist, but I felt like my experiences with therapy and my experiences with life coaching were very similar. There's a lot of overlap there of teaching you to think differently, giving you tools in your tool belt, opening my eyes to just see the world differently. So if someone was familiar with therapy, I'd probably put it more in that grouping. But I think what I told a lot of people is that basically they can talk to you about whatever they want. They could take it any way they want. If they don't want it in family, like that's fine too. But that's just what I chose to focus my time more on it
Right.
with.
Mhm.
I think I would say too, if people are wondering what it was like, I would say, well, if you want to talk about something specific, you can just tell her and she'll help you guide through that thinking. But if you don't have a specific thing that you want to talk about too, I think one of the things that was really cool is you would say like, well, if you don't have anything specific, we can talk about this today, and
Mhm.
you would just teach me a new tool, which would usually spark a conversation. But I did like that about you too, is I didn't feel like I had to lead it with a problem that I was experiencing, although I
Mhm.
usually had one. But you would bring up a concept too.
Right.
We
Yeah.
were just sitting in silence, like waiting for me to say something.
No. So, yes. And it completely depends. I have clients who show up every time and they're just like, teach me something and then I'll think about it. And they just aren't in the headspace or bringing anything forward in particular to talk about. So it goes both ways. Yeah. We touched a little bit on how coaching impacted your businesses and some of the conversations we had about that, but I just wanted to expand on that in terms of where you think it impacted your work.
Specifically in work, I'm just going to go back to that example of like just learning that people just do things differently than me because they have had different experiences than me, and I don't need to take things so personally um because their motives, reasons, expectations might just be different because of how they were set up before we came into contact with each other, not necessarily because of something I said, didn't do, didn't say. So that was freeing. It can also be a little bit frustrating learning that too, though, because then you learn that things are a little bit out of your control overall, knowing that, you know what, this person might have said this or didn't say this just because that's what their owner's manual told them to do, not because it's a direct reflection on me as a person. One of the things that I learned during coaching with you too is that I'm a perfectionist. I did not know that about myself. And so that has helped me a lot in my business too, because although I'm still very much working through it, at least I can acknowledge that, oh, this is hard for me because I'm a perfectionist and not because there's something wrong with me, and I shouldn't give up just because it's not perfect, or I shouldn't not start just because it's not perfect. It is a daily struggle, but that has helped me in my businesses very much too. So those are the two concepts, both for how I do my work. I realize that was very wordy, but hopefully that sums it up okay.
That's perfect. And
I feel like I'm having a coaching call right now as I'm like just spitting things out and kind of coming up with the answer as I go.
we're good. We're good. We're having a conversation. One of the businesses that you have is decluttering and organizing. And I often use the analogy that coaching can be like, cleaning out a closet or a junk drawer. And in times that we have to take a look at what we've got. We have to decide, I want to do something about it. And then some of the things are going to stay. Some we're not sure about, maybe quite yet. Others are, even if we've had it for a long time, there's no reason to hang on to it anymore. And I think that's so true with coaching, that we have these thoughts, ideas, beliefs that we have no idea why they're there, but it's just habit. It's been there forever, and we hang on to it. We carry it with us to the next place.
That was a light bulb moment for me too, when you taught me that thoughts can just be a habit. Like you're in the habit of thinking this. It's not even that I necessarily are rethinking it every single time, but I'm not naturally thinking this thought. I'm thinking this thought because I always think this thought at this point.
Mhm.
That was a light bulb, mind-blowing moment. I didn't know that thoughts could be habits.
Right. Everything is very surface level. And so much there, and the habits, right? That this kind of thing happens, especially, you can call it a trigger. It doesn't have to be a good or a bad thing, but this sort of thing happens, and it just triggers my brain to say, oh, in this kind of situation, this is what I've always thought. And our brain wants to be efficient and plug it in right away, so we don't have to think about it. And so we don't. And yeah, that autopilot is not always our friend.
No.
It wasn't particularly out of one of your coaching sessions, but we talked about the holiday bingo. And
so I just do it mentally. But what I think of is the things that I know that are going to happen that would usually irk me. I think Kristen usually uses the word like reframing it. So like we've reframed it. So instead of that certain relative who always uses cuss words around kids, which really bugs me, instead of that really getting under my skin, now it's like marking it off of my bingo board. So, you want to be the first one to get bingo. So I think mentally of all of the things that I usually dread. And now when one happens, obviously I'm not happy about it, but it stings a little bit less because you're like, oh, good, I get to mark that on my bingo card.
it's almost like bringing curiosity as to, when is this going to happen? And you're anticipating it, and it can be like, yep, I knew that was going to happen tonight. And
Yeah.
again, it doesn't change the experience, but it changes how you're showing up in that moment. Like, you can sit and stew about it, or it's like, oh, here we go again. We've got this story that's been told 19 times before, or this person who is going to make this, snide, rude, inappropriate comment, whatever it is, just those kinds of things that are coming. You want to be different, you want to change, but when you just embrace, like, I know this is coming, and kind of like the checklist in your
It's
mind.
funny. It almost becomes
Mhm.
funny. With my own immediate family, I felt comfortable telling them like, yeah, well, this is my bingo card and this is what's on it, and you're all on it. And like we laughed about it, and then when someone would do one of the things as a group, we're laughing. Obviously, in some scenarios, that's not like appropriate to say, hey, just so you know, you're on my bingo card. So in some get-togethers, I'm just keeping tally in my mind. But it was actually kind of fun to play out loud too. So I do it even when it's just me and my husband at home. Like, is he gonna chew with his mouth open? That can go on my bingo card for real. And I've told him that too. And even just in like day-to-day life, I use it, and it just makes it so much funnier and just more enjoyable.
Yeah, it is. It's and it's not something that I created. It's something that I found as well. But I think it's something you can bring it to, whether it's holiday gatherings or birthday parties, or like you said, just day to day. Like if it's your kids or your spouse, like I'm waiting for the person to say this, or this is going to happen, or it's going to be burnt, or we're going to be late, or that it doesn't mean that you don't ever want it to change, but it can be taking it at face value, understanding, hey, it's going to
I've
happen.
Kristen, I've even done it like in some of the group meetings that you and I have been in with
Mhm.
other business owners or really corporate America in general. I'll put, whatever notes I'm taking, I'll put like phrases that bug me that people use all the time. And I'll just write those phrases on the side of my paper. And then as soon as someone uses season of life or pivot or whatever the word is that I hear all the time, I just get to cross it off. Like it just makes it
I'm
more
gonna have to
fun.
I'm gonna have to sit by you next time so that I can watch.
Or the phrase like, what does that look like? Those
Mhm.
just phrases that get used all the time that usually bug me. Now it's more fun. Ooh, someone said it. I get to cross it off. And I'm just as guilty. I might be the one that says the phrase too.
Right. So yeah, so if you're listening, I will link in the show notes to uh, something with a little bit more detail about bingo if you're interested in seeing more about it. It can be fun.
I also recommend telling, like, if you have a close family member, like I told my sister-in-law that I was gonna do this before we went to the big group. And so then she kind of got to play it along with me too. So
Yes, or
to have
even
a friend to play with is kind of fun.
right, or girlfriends. You don't even have to be going to the same event. It can just be checking in that with each other, like, hey, I got five, and it's 7:02 p.m. I win, whatever it is. You guys have to buy me a drink the next time we get together, or it can be competitive and fun, or simply by yourself, but it can make those gatherings a little bit
Huge,
more enjoyable.
huge, huge changes with getting together with family after I learned that concept.
Mhm.
And I use it
And
way more than the holidays. I use it every time.
yeah. So because I think there were people, yes, that you definitely, there were going to be people there, situations you didn't want to deal with that caused you stress, to the point where you almost didn't want to go. And so now, when those situations arrive, what's going through your mind instead?
Okay, lots of things. So first and foremost, I'm like, since I've done a lot of coaching with you, I've just come to, so that's changed. Number two, the bingo has obviously made it a lot more fun. And then number three, like we talk a lot about I'm only responsible for myself. Like, I don't have to respond. I don't have to fill the silence. I don't have to make sure that this person and this person have a good time together. Just releasing myself of so many things that I used to take upon myself or worry about, or I realize that I have every place to just sit there and experience what's in front of me as everyone else's without me having like meddle or get involved in things. One of the other things that you taught me too was like uh that you can drink a lot of water before you go to a family function. So if you want to dismiss yourself to go to the bathroom so you can just like get away for a minute, or you just want to go outside for a minute, that I'm fully entitled to do that just like everybody else is.
Yeah.
You don't have to just sit there and in a situation just because that's how you I don't know, you're supposed to. I don't know. So anyway,
Yes,
all
and
of
you can
those things
absolutely get up
together.
and go anytime you want, but some people feel like I really need a reason or excuse. Well, the bathroom is a basically one.
Yeah, my husband's like, "Yeah, I just get up when I want to." And I'm like, "Really?" Because that thought never crossed my mind that if someone's having a conversation and I'm just not interested, that I'm allowed to just walk away from it. I don't know that we talk about like, being a good girl and you just, sit there and listen and nod your head and I'm learning that like I can just walk away if I want. And I feel so much freer.
Right. Yeah, and you can be polite. You can still say, "Excuse me,"
I'm
or
not
"I need
rude
to go."
about it,
Right.
but
You
just
do.
like
Yeah.
learning that if these two people aren't having a great conversation, that it's not my job to like mediate or like get involved in it at all. That I'm allowed to just let them figure it out. I don't know why used to insert myself or make people's happiness my responsibility, because it's not. It's just not.
Mhm. Mhm. It's very freeing to recognize that. I mean, it can be sad almost some ways because we think we have more influence or control than we really do. Like, if I act this way, then this is going to happen, and everybody will feel good, whatever. But when you recognize, like, I really can't make another person do something, or me inserting myself into this where I don't belong, maybe I do, but just inserting yourself because you want a certain outcome, and releasing people to kind of manage their own emotions and their own
Yeah.
thoughts.
This is giving me a flashback to another topic that we talked on too that was so helpful was certain people in my life who would tell me a problem they're having. And I always felt like, well, now it's my job to basically tell them how to solve that. And you kind of opened my eyes to like, well, maybe they want your advice, but maybe they don't. Like, you don't have to always have the advice for everybody. And then you can just say, like, do you want me to? I can't remember exactly how you worded it, but basically you told me, like, you can just ask them if they want advice or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Do you want me to
you have to
listen, or
just,
do you want me to respond?
yeah, like, you don't have to have the answer for everything that someone says. And that was like, oh, really? Okay. Really? It was just like,
Mhm.
so when someone says something to me about something that's not going right in their life, I don't have to give them advice. And you're just like, you can, but you don't have to. And that was very freeing.
Yeah.
It's the
And
best
some
word.
people, some people don't even want it, right? They just want to be able to
Oh, yeah.
talk or get it off their chest. But as
I was
people
probably giving
who,
advice to people. I was probably putting myself under stress to give advice to people who weren't even looking for it or might even have been annoyed that I was giving it.
right,
Which
because
is
we
just
have been,
ironic.
we want to fix things for people. We want people to smooth it out, or you are the go-to person for so many things, which is fine, but it doesn't always have to be for every person in every situation.
Yeah, no kidding.
All
Behavior.
right. Well, thank you so much, Emily. This has been a great conversation. Is there anything you'd like to add as a final note?
Well, I think like if anyone's the main things that I was just afraid of was number one, if I show up and I don't have anything to say. That was one of my like, I don't know how that's gonna go. So if anyone thinks that they're gonna come on to coaching and have nothing to say, knowing that you provide a topic or a teaching, that's super helpful to me. The opposite was also true. I was worried, what if I get on the call with her and I just have so much to say and I overload her? Like, is she going to look at me like I'm a weirdo? Is she going to judge what I had to say? Is she going to think, oh my gosh, I can't help this person? And that's not true either. There are times when I did a lot of the talking and you did a lot of the listening. So anyone who's worried about those two ends of the spectrum, I would to just encourage them to just try it out. I tell everyone to try it out. Anyone
Well,
who has a friend or a family member should try it out because I guarantee not every relationship is perfect in your life.
that is for sure. And yes,
Your
relationships.
husband. We talk about him too.
Yes.
And I think the other part of it too is just like, I realize that you have these things in your life too. It's not like I never felt like, oh, Kristen has her life perfect. And she's probably judging me because I don't always get along with this person or that person, or I said this mean thing and now I'm feeling regret, whatever. I did get a sense of like, you also have problems and have worked through your problems and you're not coming from like a place of looking down. But I didn't get that sense at all.
Well, thank you. Yes, I'm
Which
I'm
I'm sure
human.
is,
I'm
yeah,
human.
exactly.
And
Exactly.
we're all on our own journey. And I like to think that I'm walking beside you, and maybe I've experienced things, or have some other tools, and it's just a way of sharing it through you. But everybody is bringing their own stuff to the table, good and bad. And I like to also have those assumptions that people are doing the best they can with what they've got in the moment. And so we're just giving you more tools to keep going.
Yes,
So,
I owe you a debt of gratitude.
oh, well, it was wonderful working with you and to be able to get to know you as a friend. Thank you for listening to the Stop Overthinking podcast with Kristen Odegaard. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone else who would benefit from the message. To learn more about working with me and links to social media and free resources, head over to my website, coachwithkristen.com. That's Kristen spelled Kristen. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss future episodes. Have a great week.